You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we go above and beyond our traditional options stomping grounds, moving a little bit farther afield past your SPY and your VIX and your Tesla and your meme stock options, and looking a little bit further afield, seeing what's going on over there in them thar crypto hills. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting network. If you guys want to join us live throughout the week, get access to the great pro Q&As every Tuesday, Options Oddities on Friday, all the great giveaways and everything else. You know where to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro, or if you're really cool, theoptionsinsider.com/secret club. Remember, your secret, don't tell anybody. And of course, however you listen, live after the fact, hit us up, questions, comments, insights, pearls of wisdom. We do love to hear from all of you out there. Let's see who we're hearing from on the old program today. It is time to roll out the Crypto Hot Seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the program where we pick the brains of the folks out there making the noise, making the headlines, making the change out there in the world of crypto. We look at the crypto derivative space, but sometimes we go beyond, like today, where we are joined by a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is Rob FRASCA, the co-founder and managing partner of COSIMO Ventures. Rob, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
Hey, how are you?
And Rob, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the program, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the crypto space, as well as what it is you guys do over there at COSIMO Ventures.
Yeah, hey, so actually my background, I'm a .com guy. I've been building companies now for almost 30 years. And my, I would say, claim to fame is I actually started the very first financial service on the internet way back in 1993. And when I was 29 years old, Intuit came in and acquired that company and wound up becoming Quicken Financial Network. And I've done some other startups. I did an AI company, sold it to Lycos. Lycos was the number 2 portal behind Yahoo. And we took that public and ultimately sold it to Telefonica. And then I've done a couple of other companies, sold it to Nielsen and one company, and sold another one to Unity in the video game space. And today I run a company. We've been around for about 7 years. It's called COSIMO Ventures. I've got 3 partners. There's 4 of us. And we have a venture fund called COSIMO X that is focused on all things blockchain. And what makes the fund unique is it's actually tokenized. So you can go out and buy a share of the fund. It's a security token. And look for early exposure in the blockchain market. So we look at all things crypto. We've been doing that now for around 5 years.
So you were early there on the Quicken space. That was you, Rob.
That's right. That's right. Way back in 1993.
I still see those ads pop up every now and then. On Sunday Night Football, I saw one again the other night. So how do you feel about how your baby has morphed over there at Intuit over the years?
Well, ultimately, it turned into Quicken Financial Network, which is where all the stock quotes were on the internet, and mutual funds and early portfolio analysis, all that good stuff. So it's all been a wild ride. It's been a good thing.
All right, let's dive into the more modern stuff, the COSIMO Ventures. You guys went the token route. You're the world's first real tokenized fund out there. Why did you decide to go that route versus the more traditional fund route?
Well, look, we believe, and I always say to my partners all the time, man, I've seen this movie before. I've been in this movie and I know how it ends. And we believe with all our hearts that blockchain represents the single largest value creation event in our lifetime. I mean, this is bigger than the internet. And I know I was part of that. I did some companies in that. And, one of the things about traditional venture capital is that usually the only people that get to exposure to that asset class are institutions, right? Because it's a locked up fund. It's generally for 10 years. It's, big capital calls. And so what we wanted to do was create a fund similar to the way mutual funds work, where outside the U.S., any retail investor could come in and enjoy venture capital. Obviously, in the U.S., you still have to be an accredited investor. But what we wanted to do is what the tokenization does, basically, digital shares do, is they make it easy for people and to buy and sell their shares in the fund and essentially create liquidity in the market. As you know, this is a huge global phenomenon. It's not just the U.S. It's not Silicon Valley anymore. So we wanted to kind of democratize venture capital, if you will.
Interesting. So you got my next question then, because I thought maybe the tokenization would maybe give you an end run around the accredited investor. You still have to be an accredited investor to buy this token. You do still have to, in the U.S., you still have to be an accredited investor. It's a Reg D 506 fund in the U.S. So you do have to be accredited, although the minimum investment in the U.S. is considerably lower than most traditional venture funds. It's a $200,000 minimum inside the U.S. Outside the U.S., the minimum is only $10,000. All right. Well, we talked about the mechanism, which is interesting, to raise the capital for that fund. But obviously, the purpose of the fund is to put that capital to work. So, Rob, what are we putting that capital to work in right now? What companies and new coins and tokens are catching your eye right now?
Yeah, so what we try to do is give early exposure to what I call the illiquid class of digital assets and preferred equity. So, a traditional venture capital model is, you get in early, you invest at the seed stage, you help that company grow through Series A, Series B, Series C, and hopefully it goes public, it turns into a unicorn, and you get some alpha, right? In the crypto world, in the digital asset world, that timeline is compressed considerably. These projects, these protocols, these technologies, these companies, they tend to get liquid a lot faster. So what we try to do is get in before the tokens go liquid, generally at a much lower price than, say their listing price. And in the case of preferred equity, obviously we're getting in very early as well. The kinds of things that we're looking at are early layer ones. We're in Casper, for instance, pretty early. Hedera, HBAR, we love both of those. But we're also looking at, small currencies that are emerging, that are in the adaptive kind of long-term store of value, proof of stake kind of world. There's a currency called NDAU, NDAU. .io. We're pretty excited about. It's actually an adaptive currency. And then we're also spending a lot of time looking at the on-ramps, the infrastructure, and of course, we're just now really jumping into the NFT side of the business.
A lot to unpack there. It's interesting. You mentioned NDAU. Maybe let's start there because that is an interesting one. NDAU. What is it that attracts you to that one? Why are you guys so hot and heavy on NDAU right now?
Well, NDAU is early. They've been out for a while. Their following is starting to grow. They've got well over 12,000 people, using the currency. What's really interesting about it is that if you hold NDAU in your wallet, and you basically just hold it in there, the wallet automatically stakes the currency out, and so you're actually starting to earn more NDAU through the proof of stake. If you actually lock it up for a year, you can earn up to 12 or 13%. And it's compounded, continuously. So it's a pretty cool currency. It's adaptive in that there's some AI algos on the monetary policy that actually monitor the supply and demand condition of the currency in the market, and then adjusts the supply and demand through either an issuance or a burn type of situation. So it's a pretty cool currency. It's pretty complicated, but it's just now really starting to come into market.
Yeah, the income streams on a lot of these currencies. I know that's attracting a lot of our audience these days. Our audience obviously pretty savvy in the option space, so they're used to writing calls and things to generate income against their holdings. You can't really do that yet in a lot of these smaller altcoin out there. So some of the things like staking, or you can lock up or you loan out your crypto and you can get fairly attractive rates. So yeah, Rob, that certainly has become an attractive component. It used to be the old days, you'd go out and look for a high yield equity, right? You want something that pays a high dividend. Now these days, crypto is becoming the hunt for income as well, Rob.
I agree completely. In fact, I think staking, proof of stake, has really become the kind of new mining, if you will. There are a lot of people that mine for Bitcoin and the proof of work. And as you know, that requires a lot of horsepower, a lot of computers, electricity. Whereas proof of stake, all I need to do is just basically put my money in, put my crypto up and stake it. I don't need heavy duty horsepower, and I can earn quite a bit of yield on the back of that. So there's a lot of real attractive things going on in that space. And in fact, we believe that a lot of these proof of stake currencies will really become the income generators in this new kind of digital world.
Well, you touched on the other hot buzzword, that is NFTs, Rob. It seems like they were super hot for a little while there, then they may be cool while everyone was trying to figure out what the hell is going on with these things. And now they're just exploding again. It seems like every sporting event, whatever it is, media outlet, whatever it is, they all have an NFT ready to go. I've lost track of how many people have hit us up saying, you need an Options Insider NFT, which is, again, is something we are mulling over here. But what are your thoughts on this just insane NFT marketplace right now, Rob?
Look, I think it's really important that you understand what's going on here. I hate the fact that they call them NFTs. What we're really talking about here is decentralized digital rights management. That's what this is all about. So I'm less excited about the NFTs themselves. I kind of think of them as digital Beanie Babies, if you guys remember those crazes. But what this really is all about is embedding kind of royalty rights, digital rights management into the media itself. And I think this is going to change the world of media. The world went from kind of, 4 stations, right? ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS. That's right. And now everybody is a content creator. And what really NFTs really think about is putting the entire digital rights on the blockchain. So that means that anybody that creates their own content could essentially embed the digital rights into the media itself. And those digital rights contracts follow that media no matter where it goes. And that, to me, that's bigger than Bitcoin itself. That's going to basically change the business model of media as we know it, and that's why we're looking at it, because it's insane amount of alpha that's going to come out of that.
Since we're talking NFTs here, really quickly, one of our live listeners wants to know if you're getting into NFTs because you see the metaverse as a big player in the future. So, Rob, are you all in on all things meta these days?
I'm not quite there on the meta side. I can see it. I've spent some time in the past in kind of the virtual world space. If Meta is kind of playing with Web3, a decentralized world and a decentralized web, then yeah, I'm all in on Meta. Whereas if it's more of kind of a virtual world kind of thing, I think that's going to take a little bit more to happen. But your listener's absolutely correct. And this is the reason why NFTs are so critical, because if you do believe that the entire web is going to go decentralized, it's going to go into this kind of metaverse kind of thing, that ultimately all your media has to be able to manage, all the media royalties need to be managed within that sphere. And so it's really important to look at what's going on the NFT space. We're spending a lot of time looking at the platforms, right? The forages, the people that are doing the contracts, the smart contracting. If you notice, all the layer ones are now all going in on the NFT side. So that's really what we're spending our time as investors looking at.
Do you have any of the digital assets that are out there catching a lot of people's eyes right now? You hear a lot about, the Solanas and the Avalanches, or is it by the time they get to the top 10 or so of market cap, Rob, that's already beyond you guys? You guys look a lot earlier.
We look a lot earlier, but look, let me tell you how I think about this. I think it's early. I was on the plane flying back from San Diego. I live in Boston, and this guy next to me we're talking, and he's asking me about what I do, and he goes, "Man, I wish I bought Bitcoin because I'm late to the game." And I kind of started laughing. He says, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "This is early. This is the first inning. When you think about the world, we're only at about a 10 to 12, maybe 15% adoption. And most markets really don't take off until they hit 15% adoption. So I kind of think of, selling Bitcoin or selling Solana today and going, man, I got a 10x on this thing. It's kind of like selling Amazon at the IPO and doubling your money thinking you're a rock star. I really believe this is super, super early. And so, I'm more long-term focused. I'm a long-term holder. I'm going to stake wherever I can. And, if you really truly believe that blockchain is going to revolutionize the world, then you'd be crazy to be selling anything these days. Now, of course, I'm not giving any financial advice here, but that's my personal opinion is I'm a holder. I'm going to hold on and I'm going to buy on the dips. And, I'm holding for the long run here.
Obviously, we've had some interesting developments recently in the crypto marketplace as a whole, including one really just transformative event. Everyone's been waiting for the launch of an ETF. We finally got one a little over a month ago. Maybe not quite the flavor that everyone expected. People were holding out hope for this spot ETF. We ended up getting one based on the futures, which, if you've been paying attention to the regulatory side of the space, shouldn't really come as a surprise to you, but that did surprise a lot of people. I'm curious for you, Rob. Obviously, you must have seen this tidal wave that hit the crypto space of late, which is BITO and all the various iterations that have launched since. What are your thoughts on the BITO ETF as a whole, and then the fixation on the ETF that the market still seems to have right now?
Well, I think we're almost there, but not there yet in terms of the ETF. Look, at the end of the day, having an ETF in the market is really a proxy for just another flood of capital into the market. As the market grows, more capital is going to flood in. Regulatory clarity is a key thing. I actually think it's a great thing, because every time you get any kind of regulatory clarity or some kind of indication of regulatory clarity, what it means is reduced risk. And when you have reduced risk, you have an increased flood of capital into the market. So as there becomes more regulatory clarity, as more things like ETFs get approved, it lowers the risk threshold. As it lowers the risk threshold, you got more capital flooding into the market. It's all good. We saw this just like the early days of the internet. Again, I keep saying I've seen this movie play out before, and it's playing out the same way this time. It's just happening faster. So, it's really interesting to watch as it unfolds. I think one of the interesting things here is the macro backdrop, because you just so happen that, we're printing money like crazy. U.S. dollars becoming devalued. The overall macro landscape is almost a perfect storm, in my opinion, to crypto and blockchain. I don't know if you saw Ray Dalio just recently came out, at Bridgewater, and he's saying, all of a sudden now he's saying, well, wait a minute. I think it's time to put some crypto in your portfolio. That's a big indicator as to where his head's at. And he's famous for saying cash is trash, right? So it's pretty interesting.
There's been a lot of big about faces in the crypto space. Dalio, Jamie Dimon was a pretty infamous one, so there's quite a few people who've changed their tune out there on all things crypto. Well, obviously, Rob, we focus more on the derivative side of the space. It's still a nascent part of the overall derivatives market. And obviously, you have Bitcoin options and futures. You've got ETH options and futures. Then it kind of tails off once you get outside of those two. We have some perpetuals and other things lurking out there that are effectively quasi-derivatives on a lot of these other platforms out there. Is this an area of the space that has intrigued you at all? Have you dabbled into the crypto derivative space yet, or is it still too nascent for you guys?
Yes. In fact, we just made an investment in a company called Kibo, which is focused on derivatives. And actually, I personally didn't do the deal. My partner did, but it's definitely in the derivative space. As this market becomes more mature and grows in scale and size, derivatives are essential for essentially the healthy, the health of the overall ecosystem. So it's definitely a very important aspect to the market.
I'm not familiar with Kibo. Sounds like a newcomer. Give our audience a little taste. What are we talking about here?
I couldn't even tell you, to be honest with you. We just closed on the deal. I wish I could tell you a little bit more. I believe it's on our website. As I said, my partner did it, but they're basically building, from what I understand, a derivatives platform for the broader crypto markets.
Interesting. That is still a nascent part of the space, to put it mildly out there. So intriguing stuff as all. Well, Rob, I appreciate you joining us today in the crypto hot seat to give us a bit of an overview of what you folks are cooking up over there at COSIMO Ventures. Some interesting new cryptos that haven't made it on our radar yet, like NDAU and a bunch of others. But before we go, Rob, if you want to leave our audience with maybe any interesting hints, any teases of what you guys are keeping an eye on in the crypto space, or perhaps you have some interesting media or appearances or YouTube you want to plug, now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, check out CosmoX.com. That's our fund. So one of the other deals that we recently did was Dusk Networks. Really love what they're doing as well. They're on the privacy side. So that's been moving quite well. We're pretty happy with the team there. So, but check us out, CosmoX.com.
And I am going to check out this Kibo as well. I'm going to search on your website after the show, see if I can check out what it is. I see them right here, KIBO. They're Capital Efficient Options Protocol. So that's right up my alley, Rob. I might have to pull that one up, and maybe we'll be chatting again soon about all things Kibo and everything else you guys have cooking up. Check them out in the meantime, listeners. CosimoX.com. Meanwhile, we have to keep on rolling. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all of the action in the world's leading digital asset, which is, of course, Bitcoin. By the way, I hope you enjoyed the crypto hot seat. We endeavor to bring you a wide variety of guests in that segment who profile a lot of different interesting areas of the space. One thing you guys always ask, because obviously we love the derivatives and we love to talk about that stuff here, but you guys are always fixated with what are the new cool altcoin coming up on the horizon. So we always like to bring on guests who may have some insight into that. And NDAU, certainly intriguing. And I'm definitely intrigued by this Kibo. I want to kick the tires over there and see what they have to offer. Let's see what Bitcoin has to offer coming into the start of the show here. And again, it's been an intriguing period. We saw, of course, that mini flash crash, and we saw Bitcoin kind of struggling to make those levels back. Still not quite there this week. We flirted with the 50K level again. We got there on about Wednesday of this past week, got close to it. 49,000, about 500 is where Bitcoin topped out for the week. And we hit our low coming up on Friday of about 45,500. So we had a roughly 4,000 handle range on the week. Right now we're at near the lower end of that, about 1,000 points north, close to 46,500 when we kicked off the show. So Bitcoin not quite managing that resurgence. But again, we are coming up on the tail end of the year. So sometimes the latter portion of December can look a lot like the latter portion of August when it comes to volume. So we'll see what's going on out there. In terms of vol, outside of that sharp spike we saw in the initial sell-off, that mini flash crash, we've seen Bitcoin vol kind of settle down into the mid to high 70s to low 80s range, and it's pretty much been there all week. It was an 81 on our last show. Coming into today's show, it's a whopping 80%. So again, it has this air about it that is very similar to what we see in precious metals volatility, where it kind of tends to hang out in one range for quite some time. When it pops, and it can pop, it's very short-lived, and it comes right back down to that range again. And that's kind of where we are in Bitcoin vol right now. If you're a premium seller, you got, you have those quick moments of terror, but otherwise you're looking pretty good. We had Greg from Genesis Vol on last week. By the way, of course, all these analytics coming at you courtesy of our friends over there in Genesis Volatility, gvol.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. He said people have been hoping for that one spike so the vol buyers could have a chance to finally get out, and they did. But it's very analogous to what we see in the equity space. When you see the vol pop, you have to get out while the getting's good, usually pretty quick. And then you have that brief moment to sell it at those high levels, and it comes right back down to those lower levels. We saw that in Bitcoin vol, and we're still kind of hanging out now around that range we were last week. BitVol, which is, of course, Simon Ho over there at T3, that's his Bitcoin VIX effectively. It's hovering around similar levels to last week as well, a little bit lower. We were at a 93.5 on our last show. Coming into today's show, a little bit shy of 90, about 89.70. In terms of SKEW, not a huge change, a little bit of an evolution this week. Last week, we were negative 3.5. This week, we were about a negative 1.2. So still negative, but slightly less so. Let's get on out to the open positions. Let's see what's open out there and going on in Bitcoin options. Again, all this coming from Deribit. They are still the big dog out there when it comes to Bitcoin options. And the calls have been leading the dance roughly 2-1 for pretty much the entire latter half of 2021, and that remains the case right now. Calls at about 142,000 contracts open right now. It's up about 7,500 from this time last week. Puts at about 66,200, so still more than 2-1. Calls over puts out there. The puts are up slightly, about 2,000 this week. In terms of where you folks are lining up from an expiration perspective, it has been mostly quarterlies for the latter half of 2021 as well, and that remains the case. December is far and away ahead of everything else. 111,000 contracts open. It's up 4,300. As Greg pointed out on the show last week, we're coming up against an interesting moment here, an inflection point perhaps in the world of crypto options, where we're effectively seeing an enormous percentage, close to half of the OI is going to roll off the board in December. That's not something we traditionally see. You don't see that in Apple or other popular options products you may be used to trading. To see such an enormous percentage of the OI roll off the board in a little over a week, that's strange and weird, and is kind of questioning what we're going to see after that. Are we going to see the same exact positioning, all calls all the time? Is it going to be a little bit different now that we are a little bit lower to where most of that OI was put on throughout the year? I mean, the next closest position is March with 27,200 contracts. That was up slightly this week, about 600. I mean, nothing else is even close. So we're going to fall off a huge cliff at the end of this year. It's going to take a while to rebuild that OI. It's going to be fascinating to watch, see what shape it takes going forward. In terms of the top positions, this is also going to be fun to watch in the coming weeks. Are these going to remain the big dog after December rolls off the board? I'm guessing maybe not, but we never know. The number one big dog out there, still the par strike, the 100,000 strike with 15,000 contracts. Weirdly enough, all these top positions are pretty much exactly unchanged from last week, and they've kind of been unchanged for a couple of weeks now, which again goes back to we are in that seasonally a little bit quieter period out there in the crypto markets. Number two, actually, we have a tie for number two between the 80,000 strike and the 120,000 strike. Both of them at about exactly 11,000 contracts, and both of them pretty much unched on the week as well. So not a lot of action in the top three spots there, really, in the top five. Number 3/4 is the 70,000 strike with about 9,600 contracts, up slightly, up about 400 contracts from this time last week. And rounding out our top five this week is the 60,000 strike with about 9,000 contracts. That's down slightly. So a whole lot of nothing really in our top five this week in terms of evolution. again, I think we'll see some interesting changes in a couple of weeks once all this rolls off the board. Will the power strike still be leading the dance, or will it be something a little bit more reasonable? We shall see going forward. Let's also see what's going on from an OI perspective out there on Deribit. Again, we haven't seen a huge change from an open interest perspective, so we didn't really see a huge change in the notional value of said OI. It was about 10 billion worth of open interest open on Deribit last week, a little over 11 billion if you add in all the other venues. Pretty much the same level this week as well. Let's look really quickly. What is number 2 out there? CME has taken the number 2 spot this week with 328 million worth of OI, followed hot on their heels. It's a hot fight these days between LedgerX and CME for number 2. And LedgerX right now is 299 million. And then we have Bit.com behind them at 222 million. And then OKEX at 209 million. Again, you know I'm not a huge fan of notional value things. It doesn't really mean much when you're talking the notional value. A number of contracts trading, these kinds of things are more indicative of trading interest. But again, the lingua franca of the crypto market still is notional. So we can only buck that trend for so long. Hopefully, as the volume continues to increase, we can move beyond this notional obsession everyone has. Speaking of the notional volume out there, a pretty decently active week, especially considering where we are from a seasonality perspective. This week, we had one day threatening $1 billion worth of notional, 933 million. That was the 15th when we were threatening the 50K level in Bitcoin. The 16th, we saw 780 million worth of notional going up, and the 17th, we saw 732 million. So again, we were seeing 100 to 200 million in the dog days of summer. So we are well beyond that still, which is good. So we'll see if we can keep that up throughout the end of the year. Let's go on out to CME land, see what's lighting it up out there from a crypto perspective. Not a ton on the options front. The OI has ticked up about 100 contracts to 1,400. The last trading day, we only saw 53 contracts going up on Friday. So not a ton lighting it up on the options front at CME. Futures front, similar story. We only saw 5,700 going up on the last trading day, which was Friday. The OI is right around 13,200 or so, which is down about 300 from this time last week. Not a huge change. So we saw that explosion go up really right after the launch of BITO. And then ever since, we've kind of been hanging out here. We'll see if we see a surge of interest again after a lot of Dees rolls off the board. Micro Bitcoin futures, which is where more of you will be hanging your hat out there. They're doing some decent paper out there. We saw 19,000 or so going up on Friday. The OI has ticked up to about 45,000 as well. It's up about 3,000 from this time last week. So a little bit more interest out there in the micro products, which makes a lot of sense. As we keep on rolling, it is time to explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe. Let's do it. Let us commence the dance. That is the top 10 now. Our listeners, I should say our producers, have expanded it to a top 12 this week because that's where Dogecoin is hanging out. Number 12 with about 21, almost 22 billion worth of market cap. Number 11 is Polkadot with about 23.6 billion. Number 10, Avalanche. That's an intriguing one of late. 26, almost 27 billion. Number 9 is Terra, 30.1 billion. Number 8, XRP, 40.5 billion. Will we see a resolution to XRP sometime in our lifetimes? Who knows out there, but 40.5 billion worth of XRP right now. Number 7, it's Cardano. 42 billion, pretty much exactly. Cardano still kind of looking weaker again after having a nice rally out there. It's up slightly on today, but off on the week. So it's kind of an unched week for Cardano. Number 6, USD coin, 42 billion. Number 5, it's Solana. It's up again, it's down again, it's up again. Coming in showtime was around 175 or so, almost 176. That's good for about 54 billion worth of market cap. Number 4, it's Tether at about 76.3 billion. Number Trace, it is Binance Coin, 86.25 billion. Number 2, it's ETH, 459 billion. And the big dog out there, still smaller than it has been at about 879 billion. Still shy of that 1T level. Let's get on out to ETH, which I know for a lot of you is still the big dog. Bitcoin gets all the headlines, but a lot of you are still very much invested, pun intended, in ETH. And we saw a little bit of a rally out there in ETH on the week. It was about 37, almost 37.40 on our last show, and coming into today's show about 38.64. So a nice little pop up about 126, 127 handles from this time last week. We saw a decent range north of the 4,000 level again, about 41.13. That was last Thursday. and our low was last Wednesday. So we had the range within a day, pretty much 24-hour range. The low is 36 and about 36.50 or so, 36.48. So quite the little range out there. Let's look at the vol. That vol has come in quite a bit over the course of the past week. I mean, ETH vol has been a little bit more frothy, a little bit more juicy than Bitcoin vol over the last few months. That remains the case. It's still a little over 10 points higher. It's about a 92 right now. It was about a 102 last week. So it has come in 10 points, but it still is about a little over 10 points higher than Bitcoin right now. SKEW, we saw a pretty big evolution in the SKEW. Last week, the SKEW was very, very negative, nearly -8. Now coming into today's show about -2.3. So SKEW has come in quite a bit as well. OI, how much paper is open out there in ETH right now? About 1.25 million contracts open on the call side on Deribit. Again, Deribit is really the only game in town when it comes to ETH options. It's up about 50,000 from this time last week, and the puts are at about 473,000. That's actually down about 21,000 from this time last week. I won't even spend too much time on the notional value of that OI because it's pretty much unched from this time last week. Notional value of the volume going up this week, that was, again, given where we are in the cycle coming into the end of the year, is decent numbers. We saw most days this week at or a little bit north of 500 million, which, again, not blowing the doors off, but also it's not the very, very anemic volume we saw earlier this year during the July to August timeframe out there. So given where we are late in the cycle, that actually isn't too bad. Let's get on out to where you folks are lining up from an expiration perspective. As DECE heavy as Bitcoin has become, ETH has always been a quarterly dominated product, and that remains the case. December, 775,000 contracts open right now, up 54,000 again. We're seeing that same looming cliff in ETH that we see in Bitcoin. All this DECE is going to roll off the board in a few days. What's it going to look like afterwards? It's going to be interesting to see. And are we going to see the same OI to start piling in again? Or are we going to see maybe some new trading, some new adjustments? Because some of these positions in December have been on for quite some time. Remember, these DECE options are listed well out into the future. So some of these positions have been around for a while. It'll be interesting to see how they reposition once they go off the board. Again, DECE, 775,000. Number 2 is March with 390,000. That's actually down about 3,000 from this time last week, and not much else really worth speaking of out there. Let's go out to the top 5. Let's go from the bottom this time just to mix it up. Number 5 in ETH is the 8,000 strike with about 71,000 contracts open. That's up about 2,000 from this time last week. Number 4 is the 6,000 strike with 90,000 contracts open. That's unched from this time last week. Number 3, the 5,000 strike with 98,000 contracts open, also unchanged from this time last week. Number 2 is the 10K strike. It has 118,000 contracts open. That's up about 1,000 from this time last week. And topping the list yet again this week, the 15,000 strike. So you need more than a triple in ETH for these bad boys to come to fruition. 119,000 contracts open there. That's down 1,000 again. I know people can be selling these too. I'm sure a lot of people are. I hope a lot of people are. But still, it's intriguing to see that 15,000 strike has dominated things for so long. Once December rolls off the board, are people going to roll right back into the 15,000 strike or maybe look at some more rational verticals? We shall see. But the 15,000 strike right now, down about 1,000 contracts, still holding the number 1 spot with 119,000 contracts open on Deribit. In terms of the ETH futures over there at CME, that not much change, about 100 more OI. So it's up to about 4,800 from this time last week. And on Friday, they did about 4,000 contracts. So not a ton there. What has been interesting to watch, though, is, again, the ETH that is probably more relevant to a lot of you listening. It's the micro ETH future. These just launched on December 6th. If you want to know all about them, check out the episode of TWIFO we did a few weeks ago. I had Tim McCourt from CME come on bright and early just to talk about this. So got a little bit into BITO too. So if you want to talk about all things crypto, check out that episode of This Week in Futures Options from a few weeks ago. What's CME going to do with the position limits for BITO? Why do they launch this micro ETH? All those things and a lot more on that episode. They launched them on December 6th, and they're already looking like they're a pretty decent hit. The OI is already up to about 13,500 contracts, and we saw about 21,000 going up on Friday. So a decent day for a brand new product. I had a feeling the micro ETH might resonate with a few of you, and it seems like even though it's only been around for a couple of weeks, the answer so far is a resounding yes. You folks like it. Let's get on out to some of the other big altcoin. XRP looking a little bit better on the show than this time last week. It was about 77.5 cents last week. Coming into today's show, about 85.3 cents. So up about nearly 8 cents on the week. Good old Doge up a whopping 1 cent, 1.1 cent from this time last week. Litecoin up about almost $5, a little bit less than that. It was about 145.90 on our last show and about 150.25 or so coming into today's show. So you're talking about almost $4.50 on the tape. Cardano almost unched, it moved a penny. So Cardano can't really seem to get that lift that some of the other cryptos have been getting. Polkadot last week, $26.30. This week, $23. So taking a bit of a hit off $3.3. And Solana, nice pop in Solana. 154, almost 154.5 on our last show. Coming into today's show, 175.06, up about $20.5 out there. And good old Shiba, still giving up the ghost. It was 1,000,000.31 on today's show. It was about 1,000,000.33 on our last show. So it still continues to drop. I know that'll make a few of you have a sad face out there. And really quickly, let's get out to some of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to the crypto questions. Let's get into it right now. We have one here from StockTwits. 2022 is my year. He wants to know if we can help him. He has Ryoshi, got listed on Bitmart. He's looking at Wolverine as well, and iBank. He's talking about the different venues. Yeah, I can't help you with the different prints they're giving you at the different venues there. 22 is my year, unfortunately. That's one of the challenges with having so many different venues listing so many different tokens and coins and digital assets out there. Sometimes you get aberrant prints between the two of them. It sounds like you had that issue out there. I haven't had a lot of experience on my own with iBank and Bitmart, so I can't speak to which one is better or worse. I do feel for you out there. But sometimes when you're getting into the depths of the altcoin, and it sounds like you are here with some of these smaller, less liquid tokens, you should expect some trade throughs and some weird illiquid prints that you probably wouldn't see in, let's say, an Apple or a SPY, things that are deeply liquid. So yeah, again, it's a little bit of a caveat emptor on these. I feel your pain here. I'm sorry this is happening to you, but that's kind of the name of the game, unfortunately, when you're trading illiquid names on some of these smaller venues out there, unfortunately. Let's go out to the live chat. Let's go to Mr. Unlimited. He says, I don't remember where I was listening to it. Could have been on this show, but someone was making the comparison to crypto and the .com bubble. And some coins will not make it, and some coins will thrive. But some people just buy a crypto because it is a crypto, like I did with Shiba. He's one of those Shiba holders. I do think that Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and Cardano, and a few might make it while others perish. Yeah, I think there are a lot of analogies to be made between crypto and the .com madness out there. There certainly is some of that. I've joked many times on this network when I was down on the floor of the Chicago Board Options Exchange in the heady madness of the .com bubble. People would frequently, these were intelligent people who were financial professionals, these professional traders, and they had some hot new name they were excited about. And we'd say, what does it do? And they would say, who cares? It's internet, or it's a .com. That's all you needed back then. There is some analogous activity to that in the crypto space. What is it? Who cares? It's crypto. You do hear some of that right now. So there are some analogies to be made, and you can also make that analogy to the meme stocks and other things where anything that has run up, maybe perhaps outside of rational proportion. You could certainly say the tech stocks are overvalued back then, but at least they had some earnings, some of them. I mean, a lot of these cryptos, they have no real fundamentals. Some of them have some utility you can talk about in terms of their value when transacting on the blockchain and things like that. So you can back those numbers into some ballpark utility figure, but doing the old fundamental analysis on a lot of these doesn't really apply. So yeah, it could have been me. I think a lot of guests have made that analogy, Mr. Unlimited, about the .com bubble. I think you're probably right. We might see some of these big ones make it out. Maybe some people think Bitcoin may be the one that really takes a lot of the regulatory slings and arrows. So maybe Bitcoin could potentially fall the way of the dodo, but it could pave the way for a lot of these other altcoins to become more of the de facto standards out there. So I've heard a lot of different viewpoints on that. I wouldn't be surprised if yours comes to fruition as well. We see some of the big dogs survive, and like look at some of the, I was just talking about with 22 is my year, some of these shall we say, lesser known altcoin. Some of them have some challenges. So there's a lot of interesting things to watch out there. It sounds like our guest today, he's a holder. He's not getting rid of anything. So his viewpoint is all can still go up from here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a bit of a shakeout like you're talking about here. Mr. Unlimited. Let's wrap it up with this one here. Let's go back to the live chat. Let's go to Mr. Nichols. He wants to know, does Mark own any Avalanche? No, I do not own any Avalanche as of right now, but I do admit it is intriguing. A lot of our guests of late have been talking up a good game about Avalanche. It has been moving quite a bit. When it was selling off in the great crypto sell-off the last couple of weeks, I was starting to eye it. I never got around to actually pulling the trigger on it, but it is an intriguing one. So it may be one that may find its way into my crypto hold. And I like to have a nice little sampling of some of the bigger, more intriguing ones out there. And Avalanche is not that big, but it's becoming bigger. Certainly makes it close to our top 10 these days. So that certainly beats out 99.9% of the other altcoin out there. And they're intriguing to watch. And of course, we can talk about them here on the show. And a lot of our guests have intriguing opinions about them. But Avalanche is one that has come on my radar. And let's just say for now, Mr. Nichols, I am eyeing it along with many of you. All right, that music means we've come to the end of another crypto rundown. I want to thank our guest, Mr. Rob FRASCA, the co-founder and managing partner of COSIMO Ventures. You can check out what they're cooking up, including this Kibo. It sounds intriguing at COSIMOX.com. That's the place to go to learn more. Tokenized fund. You still have to be accredited, but at least it is an intriguing new way to structure a fund. And if you want to access some of these crazy early altcoins, sounds like they have some of that. So it's an intriguing place to go. NDAU, is that intriguing you? We shall find out. And of course, just because that music is running for today doesn't mean we're done on the network. No, listeners are coming back at you tomorrow. Pro Q&A. Mr. Viceroy himself, Alex Jacobson, going to be joining us to answer all of your options questions. You want to join that, of course, listeners, head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/secret club. Start getting those questions in now. That'll be a popular one. Wednesday, you got your double dose of education. For a lot of listeners of this show, maybe you're newer to the world of options. You definitely have to be checking out Options Bootcamp and Options Playbook Radio. That is the place to go to learn a lot more about options, get you a lot more comfortable with some of the terms we're throwing around on this show every week. Thursday, we're back with episode 2 of the Option Block and TWIFO before we're off for the holiday on Friday. Then back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.